So Rex Tillerson is Donald Trump's former Secretary of State. Now, Rex Tillerson did not leave under the best circumstances. He was actually fired back in March from that position. So a few months later, after being fired, he is now in a position to say basically what he thinks about Trump. Now, there's video of this, but I don't have the video because it's CBS, and it's probably going to get this video flagged for demonetization. Let's keep it real. So I'm going to give you the quote here. He said, "What was challenging for me," and this is Tillerson talking. "What was challenging for me, coming from the disciplined, highly process-oriented ExxonMobil Corporation, was to go to work for a man who was pretty undisciplined. Doesn't like to read, doesn't read briefing reports, doesn't like to get into the details of a lot of things, but rather just kind of says, 'This is what I believe.'" Now, here's the thing, right? This is not shocking to anybody who knows Donald Trump, who has been paying attention since 2015. For years, we have talked about Donald Trump. We've told you guys that he's an idiot, that he doesn't care about policy, that he doesn't actually, that he's not a smart person, okay? And so he calls himself a businessman, but he is actually really terrible at business. So now Tillerson, on the other hand, Tillerson ran ExxonMobil. Now look, ExxonMobil is a terrible corporation because of how Machiavellian they are, right? For example, they knew about climate change. They buried those findings because why? It would cost them money, right? They also bought politicians in order to continue giving them subsidies and expanding the use of fossil fuels, promoting it overseas, etc., right? So, look, they are super profitable because of those things. Now, see what you want about Tillerson. He does know how to make profit in this system. So there it is, right? So Tillerson's really good at making money, as opposed to Donald Trump, who is really good at going bankrupt 6 times and then losing everybody else's money. So much so that nobody would lend to him other than the Russians. So that's just on business, right? So this guy from the business world comes in as Secretary of State and immediately thinks, holy shit, this guy's dumb. He doesn't read, he doesn't care about details, thinks he's right 100% of the time based on the fact that he just likes being right. And that if he says it enough, well, then it must be true, because I'm right. And then he thinks, what have I gotten into? Oh, great. And of course, there were stories out where he had threatened to quit and was stopped by Jim Mattis and John Kelly. John Kelly also reports today, and the reason I didn't cover it in a separate segment is because John Kelly has been threatening to quit for months, for I think over a year. So it's like, oh, is he going to actually pull the trigger this time and leave the administration? What's going to happen? I don't know. It's kind of up in the air, but no, John Kelly's really going to do it this time. But getting back to Rex Tillerson, was one of the guys that convinced Tillerson to stay. Now, Tillerson, funny enough, look, Donald Trump and Rex Tillerson have had a very interesting relationship, as I'm going to get into. For one, well, before I get into that, actually, Tillerson is going to continue with his soft criticism, by the way, of President Trump. He said, quote, "He acts on his instincts in some respects. That looks like impulsiveness, but it's not his intent to act on impulse. I think he really is trying to act on his instincts." That's saying a lot of nothing. It's a lot of words for saying basically nothing. That is little distinction, same result. So keep that in mind. So look, he's trying to be diplomatic here. And as you're going to see in the next segment, that is actually going to backfire on him, of course. But when you read between the lines, of course, you see that he's basically called Trump a childlike, impulsive moron. Not a smart person. Not a smart person at all. It gets better, though. He also talked about how Trump wanted to do criminal things. Very interesting in the context of today. He said, quote, "So often the president will say, here's what I want to do, and here's how I want to do it." Tillerson said, "And I would say to him, Mr. President, I understand what you want to do, and I'd love to do it. But you can't do it that way because it violates the law. Here's something you want to do. You can't do it because it's illegal." Now, did that matter to Donald Trump? Of course not. Because he can't help but violate the law because he's already a criminal. Now, his reaction to this, of course, is he got really frustrated. Quote, "I think he grew tired of me being the guy who told him, you can't do that. Nobody tells Donald Trump that he can't do that. Nobody tells me no. Gah." So, now the thing is, look, the reason he's like that is because this guy's rich and powerful, right? And he's gotten away with doing whatever he wants for his entire life. So, am I all surprised at all that he wanted to do criminal things or wanted his cabinet to do criminal things, criminal activity, things that are illegal? There you go. Now, finally, now here's the other thing, right? Ironically, as I just mentioned, he's rich and powerful, so throughout his entire life, he got away with everything. But running for president and then winning, and therefore pissing off all the wrong people, i.e. the establishment, might be the very thing that actually allows a member of the 1% to be held accountable for what he's done, for actually being criminal, for being corrupt. Which is kind of a hilarious irony in reality. Because he has done everything that the Republican establishment has wanted. Tax cuts for the rich, etc. But he's done it in such a way that has alienated and pissed off everybody else. The people who actually run things, the corporations. Now, let's move on here to Tillerson's final comment here, and that's on Trump bans. He said, "I will be honest with you, it troubles me that the American people seem to want to know so little about issues, that they are satisfied with 128 characters." So he's talking about how Donald Trump basically, in order to get out his message, basically uses social media, Twitter. Now, he's used that effectively to talk to his audience. Now, there are other people using social media effectively. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for example, using Instagram and Twitter for clapbacks, right? And that's great. And look, President Obama sort of spearheaded using social media during his two very successful presidential campaigns. But this is a bit different because, look, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has very detailed policy proposals. Medicare for all, Green New Deal, student loan relief. And not only that, but making college, public universities and public colleges tuition free. So those are very detailed policy proposals, and you can get into how we're enact them, how we're going to pay for them, because that's all that centrists and Republicans care about, even though we know exactly how we're going to do it. There's detail here. But with Donald Trump, well, there is no detail because he doesn't release policy papers, and he doesn't actually know policy. What he knows is, well, I'm right. And this is the way I get to talk to my audience, talk to my fans. It's not, well, I'm going to talk to my constituents and see what's best for them. No, I'm going to talk to my fans because basically that's all he sees this as is, well, I'm an entertainer. I happen to have power and they're my fans. And I got to please my fans, right? So now, here's the thing. Tillerson's actually wrong on one count. I got to point this out, and I know it's petty. It's actually 256 characters. Not 128. They actually doubled it. But still no edit button. But I get his point. But he's right because the people around Trump are only supporting him for, I think, one of two things. Or both. For one, building the wall. That's all his fans care about. Even though the fact that it's very unfeasible and ultimately just won't work. Doesn't care. We want to build the wall anyway because, well, we don't like immigrants. We don't like people coming in. Well, good news. We're at net zero immigration, which means more people are leaving than are coming in. And that was also true under the Obama administration as well. But no, build a wall, right? And the other thing is white supremacy. On those two things, they don't need policies or papers or details. They just don't. And the other thing is the way that Trump speaks allows them to fill in their own biases on what possible problems there is. So when he's talking about something, right? So what seems to us to be a nonsensical tweet that doesn't make sense, his fans have already filled it in with what they want to fill it in with. And then they go, oh, I enthusiastically agree. Yeah, with yourself. It's just somebody else saying what you're actually thinking. That's why you always hear Trump supporters saying, well, I mean, he says it the way it is, and he says the things that we want to hear. Well, yeah, exactly. Because it's actually you who are saying that. But anyway, now, not only that, but of course, his solutions, so-called solutions, don't actually solve any problems, and because they're incredibly simplistic. And he'll repeat them ad nauseum. So, again, immigration. Oh, we got a problem with immigration, right? Which we don't. Well, let's build a wall. But people can fly over a wall. And look, this isn't 4th century BC China versus the Mongolians. Okay, you can't just build a wall and keep everyone out. How do you beat the wall? You fly over it. You fly over it and you overstay your visa. That is the most common way to get into the United States and become undocumented or illegal, right? But it doesn't matter to them. Again, on coal, right? Coal is dying due to market forces. It is more expensive to burn coal, to dig coal, mine coal, than it is to create a wind farm or solar energy. Even with the Trump tariffs, right? He doesn't care. Oh, I'm going to bring back coal. I'm going to put all the coal miners back to work. No, that's not going to happen. The coal mining is a very, very small part of the energy sector. Do you know who actually has more employees? Solar. But again, it's simple. The solutions won't work. They're simple and they sound good. At least to his fans. He doesn't need anything more than a Twitter account to reach his followers. Just like Trump, they're not intellectually curious enough about policy and actual details of how the government works. And I guess in some way, that's good. Trump being not so smart. Because, to be honest, a smarter person might have actually been more dangerous and more destructive. And so, there's that. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.